everybody, Ty here. Hope everybody is doing well. So as you can see, the day has arrived and the December outlook is in finally. We have one more outlook to go before we end out 2024. Kind of surreal to actually be saying that at this point. The year went by super fast despite a lot happening. But December could also be a very interesting month here as well. There's some deceiving looks on here, especially with this outlook itself. Of course, I always say that take this with a grain of salt because this isn't really a summary of what every day is going to be like. We're looking at a 31-day average, and this is what we're most likely to see at this current point in time. But I do think there is a small chance that this could get flipped on its head just a little bit. I don't know which areas will change by the time we get towards December 30 or November 30th, so to speak. That's when the next outlook will be. But I do think that there's a chance that we may see some changes on this map before we get into December. But based off what we have right now, anywhere up towards the northern US states here in the lower 48 particularly, there is an equal chance of above or below average temperatures. Either or could really happen at this point. I'm not really sure if we're going to end up being right above average or right at average even at this point either. But there's going to be a few times early, I think, in December that will kind of have us wondering what the heck is going on here, so to speak. And we'll get into the details of that in a little bit here. I do think that some of these areas in this light orange here where we're just leaning above normal at temperatures here, I do think that that area also could be prone to some change here before all is said and done. By the time we get towards the 30th of this month, I do think there's a chance we could see a little bit of blue on the lower 48. I mainly would guess over towards the northwest right now. Of course, this is just more or less hearsay for me. Always go to experts and model analysis for that, but this is just more or less a hunch that I have at this point. But going to be keeping an eye on the northwest, of course. Northern states also could be a point of interest. But the weather pattern itself as we go further ahead is going to be pretty interesting. Anywhere where we're starting to see the dark orange and the orangish red color here, like we're seeing, I do think that I have pretty good confidence in that. It's just really out here towards the southeast. I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit. Not saying that this is wrong here, but this is I'm saying that this is pretty variable and this could change to either equal. I wouldn't say that this will go necessarily below average. I think the southeast ridge is still going to be in effect. And it's going to be to such a point to where we'll probably stay just above average for the most part throughout the month here. Another reason why I have decent confidence in the northwest being slightly below average or having a better probability of dropping into the 33 or 40 percentile leaning below average is because of what we see over here towards southeast Alaska. Always watch out for that, but you can see the below average temperature probabilities there as well. We're leaning below there as well, so pretty good signal that I always tend to look for in these outlooks here. Of course, like I said, have another outlook coming pretty soon, so things may be prone to some changes there. In any case, though, when we get towards the precipitation outlook here, I also think this is pretty variable depending on where you are. I do think for the most part the storm track is going to remain mostly towards the northern states, so that's why the equal chance is there. And then at times, from what I've seen on model data here, especially to start out the month, it kind of gets that vibe of where we're looking at maybe some areas up north, maybe even towards Canada getting most of the action here, over towards the central and southern parts of the US here. And this is pretty typical of a La Nina here, even though it's a very weak La Nina at this point. You can see that here in this graph, but this is pretty typical of what we would see here. Below average rainfall seems to be likely at this point. But like I said, looks are deceiving here, and if we get into the model data like I'm about to show you, there could be some quick changes here. There's multiple areas right now, and this is actually a worldwide view of the northern hemisphere as a whole here. It's the first time I've actually noticed we were able to do that, so we can get a good look at the two oscillations that I'm most interested in, and that's the AO, the Arctic Oscillation up here, which is towards the North Pole, and the other one being the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is over here towards Greenland. Right now we have a negative AO, so we have a lot of cold air up here. But over here towards the NAO region or Greenland, we have above average pressure over here as well. So we're going to end up seeing some cold air beginning to move around. And if we look at the time frame here, this is right towards the middle part of December here, and the early part of December to go along with it. So while I don't expect this to be a long-lasting trend here, I do think this is going to mess with our temperatures a good bit over here towards the lower 48 in particular. Eventually, though, we do start to level off a bit and actually get into a slight warming trend, it looks like, as we get towards the middle and back end of the month right now. Of course, like I said, this is very much prone to change, and I'll be watching this again. Of course, another update video will be coming at the very end of this month, so make sure you're taking that with a grain of salt. And this is even getting us a little bit of a sneak preview as to how we may bring in the new year right now. So with this negative NAO here, there is a chance that temperatures may be a little bit cooler towards the northeast. Not very confident in that signal, considering we're looking well over 30 days in advance, of course. So again, take it all with a grain of salt. But from the worldwide view, a couple other things that I've kind of picked up on here before we get on here with the outlook is, I've noticed that at least within this upcoming week for, well, Thanksgiving for all of us in the US, if you happen to be watching worldwide, some of you may not celebrate it, that's perfectly fine, but very strong negative AO pops up over here. Also seeing a little bit of warmth over here towards maybe, I would say, eastern parts of Europe, getting into Asia as well. So areas like Russia coming into play. Seeing some major warming going on here. Maybe a little bit of stratospheric heating. If this was any stronger, there even would be a chance that maybe polar vortex signature could come into play here. But this is a little bit of a different situation here. Could get into the details with that, but it would probably make for like an hour-long video. So I'm going to spare you that. But in any case, though, a lot of shifting is occurring here, and if you run through this whole loop, you can easily see it. A lot of warm and cold air moving around, so there's going to be also some clashing, which is going to bring chances of severe weather over towards the southern states in particular, where those above average temperatures are expected to be as well. And here's the actual look at those temperature anomalies. If we go ahead and start out with December here, and I really think this is where the wild card comes into play. It's within these first couple weeks of December. You can see these temperature anomalies are predominantly below average as we get into that first week here. Towards the deep south, we're kind of on the edge here. We're just barely above average, and this is only on a week-to-week. We're only able to look at this on a week-to-week basis here. So there's going to be a few days where even in the deep south, we're dropping below average. So this is December 5th we're looking at here. Major cold air across the lower 48 as a whole here. But as we go into the next week here, look at how the warm air starts to bounce back from this point. And then as we go further along here, we start to see the warm air really begin to take over as we get past the halfway mark into the month. And it pretty much ends up staying that way for the rest of the month into the new year at this point in time. So like I said, a little bit questionable as to how things pan out. Still trying to hash all of that out. We'll get a better idea once we get towards the middle of the month, or the end of this month, as I mentioned before. We will actually have a weather model that'll be in range there. But of course, again, like I said before, looking 30 plus days in advance is kind of a shot in the dark at this point. So it's not really even a forecast that you're looking for at that juncture. So last but not least here, we'll go ahead and take a look at the precipitation outlook. For the most part, I'm not expecting anything too dramatic from this. I do kind of agree with the precipitation map a little bit more than I do the temperature map for the outlook for December here. As I mentioned before, I really think a lot of the storm systems are going to be staying more so towards the northern states. The southern states are probably going to be a bit dry, and this is pretty much agreeing with that for the most part. There are a couple chances here and there. I do think that over towards December 5th looks really interesting. Maybe even a chance for some snow a little bit more so towards the Ohio Valley, but not really going much further than that. Of course, we'll have to see how things pan out from there. I do think chances of severe weather also exist as we go further along into the month here. It just really depends on how the dynamics really set up from that point onward. But that being said, this is typically a little bit longer than most of my outlook videos, so I'm going to go ahead and end this one off here so it's not too long for you guys. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.